If you're exhausted from chasing an avoidant who keeps pulling away, this video will change everything. Because there's one psychology move, just one, that flips the entire dynamic and makes them come crawling back to you. I'm going to show you exactly what happens in an avoidant's mind when you stop chasing, the specific texts that break through their walls, and the reverse psychology that makes them realize what they're losing. But here's the twist. None of this requires you to play games or pretend to be someone you're not. This is about understanding their psychology so deeply that you naturally trigger their desire to reconnect. When an avoidant wants you back, it doesn't look like the movies you've watched. There are no tearful apologies at your doorstep, no love letters slipped under your door, no desperate voicemails begging for another chance. Instead, their desire comes in echoes, in coincidences, in carefully orchestrated accidents. It's reconciliation delivered in cryptic signals, wrapped in pride, tied with fear, and sealed with plausible deniability. But don't be fooled by the indifference. When an avoidant realizes they want you back, it's not that they don't feel the loss, it's that they feel it so deeply it paralyzes them. They've spent a lifetime protecting themselves by never needing anyone. So when regret shows up, real and undeniable, it challenges everything they've built. That's when they start to reach for you, indirectly, cautiously, but unmistakably. One of the first things an avoidant does when they want you back is they start appearing in your orbit again. This may sound like stalking, but it's not that direct. For someone who once needed space like air, suddenly being in the same places as you is a calculated risk. They'll show up at the coffee shop you always want together, not every day, but just enough to create possibility. They'll attend that mutual friend's party they would have skipped before. They'll like an old photo on your social media at 11 p.m., then panic and unlike it, hoping you didn't notice. But you did, and they know you did. To an avoidant, these small invasions of your space are their way of saying, I'm still here, without having to say anything at all. Another sign is how they start testing the waters through mutual friends. Avoidants are masters of indirect communication, and when they want you back, they become intelligence gatherers. They'll casually ask friends how you're doing, but they'll frame it like they're just being polite. Oh, how's everyone doing? Even Sarah? They'll drop your name like it's nothing special, but they're hanging on every word of the response. They want to know if you're dating someone new, if you seem happy, if you ever mention them. But here's the thing, they'll never ask you directly. That would require vulnerability they're not ready for. Instead, they'll piece together your life from fragments, building a picture of whether there's still space for them. They also start fixing things they broke, but without acknowledging they broke them. Remember that project you two talked about starting together? Suddenly they're doing it solo and making sure you know about it. That book you recommended months ago? They're posting quotes from it now. They're becoming the person you wanted them to be. But they're doing it at a safe distance, hoping you'll notice a change without them having to admit they changed for you. It's their way of saying, look, I heard you, without the messiness of an actual conversation. Another thing avoidants do when they secretly want you back is they start sending mixed signals that would confuse anyone else, but you know them well enough to decode. They'll text you something practical, maybe about mail that still comes to their place or returning something you left behind. But the conversation lingers longer than necessary. They'll ask how your mom's surgery went, remembering details from months ago. They'll make a joke only you two would understand. Then, just when the conversation starts feeling warm, they'll disappear mid-text. 3 days later, they're back with another practical reason to reach out. These aren't random moments of contact. They're carefully controlled doses of connection, testing how much closeness they can handle without running away again. They also start showing you their growth, but in the most indirect ways possible. Remember how they used to shut down during emotional conversations? Now they're posting articles about emotional intelligence. Remember how they couldn't handle your need for consistency? Suddenly, they're the most reliable friend in their circle, and they're making sure this information gets back to you. They're good at therapy, but mentioning it casually, like it's no big deal. They're doing the work you begged them to do, but they're doing it now when you're not around to witness the struggle. It's their way of becoming worthy of you, without having to admit they weren't before. When an avoidant wants you back, they also start experiencing something that terrifies them, jealousy that they can't hide anymore. Before, they could pretend not to care who you spent time with. Now, if they hear you're dating someone new, their whole energy shifts. They won't confront you about it, but they'll suddenly become more present in your life. Those random texts increase. They'll post more on social media, looking happier than ever. But it's performative. They might even start dating someone else, not because they want to, but because they need you to feel what they're feeling. But watch closely. They'll make sure you know about their new relationship, while simultaneously showing you it doesn't compare to what you had. They'll accidentally mention how their new partner doesn't get their humor like you did. It's manipulation, but it's also desperation dressed up as indifference. Here's where it gets really interesting. They start breaking their own rules. The avoidant who never double texted suddenly sends you 3 messages in a row at 2 a.m., probably after a few drinks lowered their defenses. They delete them by morning, but you already saw them. The person who needed a week to process every emotion is now having feelings in real time, and they don't know how to handle it. They might show up at your door after swearing they'd give you space. They might call you crying, something they never did even when you were together. These moments of raw emotion are quickly followed by withdrawal and embarrassment, but they're significant. Their entire system of self-protection is failing, because wanting you back is stronger than their need to stay safe. But recognizing when they want you back is only half the equation. The real power lies in knowing exactly what to say when they reach out. 5 texts that break an avoidance defense wall and make them open up. Avoidants are some of the most confusing people you'll ever emotionally engage with. They shut down when you try to connect, give you one-word responses when you're trying to have real conversations, and often make you feel like you're talking to a brick wall. But here's the twist. While they may act completely unreachable on the surface, that doesn't mean they can't be reached. In fact, some avoidants are secretly craving the right words to help them feel safe enough to open up. They just won't admit it. Not to you, not to themselves, and not even to their closest friends. It's like they're in a private emotional war, craving connection, but terrified of being seen as weak or needy. If you've ever walked away from an avoidant thinking there was no way to get through to them, this video might make you reconsider. Let's talk about 5 subtle but powerful texts that can break down their defense wall and make them feel safe enough to share what's really going on inside. The first text that breaks an avoidance defense wall is the non-threatening observation. Here's what you do. Instead of asking direct questions about their feelings, you simply observe something about their behavior without making it about you. For example, instead of texting, "Why are you being so distant?" you text, "I notice you've been working late a lot lately. That must be exhausting." This works because avoidance feels safe when they're not being emotionally cornered. They panic when they feel like they're being asked to explain their inner world, but they relax when someone simply notices their external reality without demanding an emotional response. The key is to make it about their experience, not your feelings about their behavior. When you text, "You seem stressed about that project," instead of, "You're ignoring me because of work," you're giving them permission to share without feeling trapped. Their brain doesn't go into defense mode because you're not asking them to be vulnerable. You're just acknowledging what they're going through. This creates a small crack in their wall, because for the first time, someone is paying attention to their world without trying to extract emotions from them. They might actually text back and tell you more about what's happening, because sharing facts about their stress feels safer than sharing feelings about your relationship. The second text that breaks an avoidance defense wall is the appreciation without expectation. Here's what this looks like. You text something like, "I was thinking about how you always remember to check if I got home safe. That means a lot to me." Or, "I appreciate how you listen when I talk about work stuff, even when it's boring." This works because avoidants are constantly worried that they're not good enough at relationships, but they're also terrified of being put on the spot about their feelings. When you acknowledge something they do well without asking for more, their nervous system relaxes. They're not being asked to perform or explain themselves. They're just being seen for the ways they already show care. The magic happens because avoidants actually do care deeply, but they show it through actions rather than words. They might not say "I love you" easily, but they'll make sure you have gas in your car or remember your important meeting. When you notice these things and appreciate them without demanding emotional declarations in return, you're speaking their language. They start to feel valued for who they are, not criticized for who they're not. This often leads to them sharing more because they feel safe and appreciated. They might text back something like, "I'm glad you noticed that," or even share why they do those things. The key is that you're not asking them to change or be more emotional. You're just acknowledging the love they're already giving in the way they know how to give it. The third text that breaks an avoidance defense wall is the vulnerable share without pressure. This is where you share something personal about yourself without asking them to do the same. You might text, I've been feeling overwhelmed with everything lately. Sometimes I just need to sit in my car for a few minutes before going inside. Or, I realize today that I get anxious when people don't text back quickly because I assume they're upset with me. This works because avoidants are terrified of being the first one to be vulnerable, but they're often relieved when someone else goes first. It's like you're testing the emotional waters for them. When you share something real about yourself without asking, "What about you?" or "How do you feel about that?" you're showing them that vulnerability is safe in this space. You're not demanding they match your emotional energy or share something equally personal. You're just being human and letting them witness it. Here's what happens in their mind. They see that you trusted them with something real and nothing bad happened. You didn't fall apart. They didn't have to fix you, and you didn't make it about them. This creates a sense of emotional safety they rarely experience. They start to think, maybe I could share something too, because you've shown them that opening up doesn't have to be dramatic or overwhelming. They might respond with something like, "Yeah, I get that," or even share their own version of what you talked about. The key is that you're modeling vulnerability without making it feel like an emotional transaction where they owe you something in return. The fourth text that breaks an avoidance defense wall is a calm boundary statement. This might seem backwards, but avoidance actually feels safer when they know where they stand. You text something like, "I'm going to give you some space to figure things out. I'll be here when you're ready to talk." Or, "I need some time to process this conversation. I'm not upset. I just need to think." This works because avoidants are constantly worried about being too much or not enough, and they're always bracing for emotional chaos. When you communicate your needs clearly without drama or ultimatums, their nervous system actually calms down. They're not trying to read between the lines or figure out if you're about to explode. You're being direct but not demanding. The magic happens because most people either chase avoidance when they pull away or they get angry and create the exact emotional mess that avoidants are trying to avoid. But when you set a calm boundary, you're showing them that you can handle your own emotions and that you're not going to punish them for needing space. This makes them feel safe enough to actually miss you instead of just feeling relieved that you're gone. They start to realize that you're not going anywhere, but you're also not going to chase them into their hiding place. This often leads to them reaching out sooner than they normally would because they feel safe to come back. They might text something like, "I appreciate you giving me space," or even share what they were actually dealing with. The key is that you're showing them that boundaries don't have to be walls and that you can take care of yourself while still caring about them. The fifth text that breaks an avoidance defense wall is the future focus invitation without pressure. This is where you text something like, "No rush, but I'm thinking about trying that new restaurant next week if you're interested." Or, "I saw they're having a movie night at the park this weekend. Thought you might enjoy it, but no worries if you're not up for it." This works because avoidants are terrified of feeling trapped or obligated, but they also secretly want to be included and thought of. When you invite them to something without making it about your relationship status or emotional connection, you're giving them permission to just be a person who might enjoy an activity. You're not asking them to process feelings or make declarations about where things are going. You're just offering them a chance to exist in your world without the heavy emotional weight they usually associate with relationships. Here's what happens in their mind. They see that you're thinking about them in a positive way, planning for the future, and including them without making it a test to their commitment. This feels safe because there's no emotional trap. They can say yes because they want to go, not because they feel obligated to prove something. They can say no without feeling like they're hurting you or ending the connection. This creates the psychological safety they need to actually engage authentically. They might respond with genuine interest or even suggest alternatives because for once, they're not trying to manage your emotions while protecting their own. The key is that you're showing them that being with you can be light and enjoyable, not just intense and overwhelming. You're proving that connection doesn't always have to feel like emotional work. Now that you understand what breaks through their walls, let's talk about the psychology that makes them come running back without you lifting a finger. 7 reverse psychology moves that make avoidance come crawling back without you pursuing them. There's a magnetic pull in doing the opposite of what feels natural, especially when dealing with someone who is emotionally avoidant. Someone who expects you to chase, who counts on your emotional investment, who assumes you'll always be waiting. If you've ever been with an avoidant, You know the exhausting pattern. You give more, they pull back. You show love, they show indifference. You reach out, they retreat further. But here is the twist. Doing more of what feels right only validates their expectations. The real power lies in reverse psychology, doing exactly what they don't expect. In this video, we are going to uncover 7 reverse psychology moves that make avoidance come crawling back without you making a single move toward them. These aren't mind games. These are strategic shifts in behavior that flip the entire dynamic on its head. 1. You celebrate their distance instead of protesting it. Most people panic when an avoidant pulls away. They send long texts asking what went wrong. They try to have deep conversations about the relationship, but avoidants expect this reaction. It confirms their belief that closeness equals pressure. When you actually celebrate their need for space, the entire script flips. You say things like, "Take all the time you need," and you mean it. You say it with genuine relief. Because here's what happens in their mind. They prepared for resistance. They were ready to justify their need for space. But you just gave it freely. This creates cognitive dissonance. They wonder why you're not fighting for them. And suddenly, the space they fought so hard to create feels empty. They expected to feel relief when you stop chasing. Instead, they feel forgotten. Nothing makes an avoidant want closeness more than realizing their absence doesn't devastate you. 2. You thank them for showing you who they are. When an avoidant shows inconsistent behavior, most people try to fix it. They point out the mixed signals. They demand better treatment. But avoidants are masters at deflecting these conversations. Here's where you flip the script entirely. When they cancel plans last minute, you thank them for helping you realize you had other things to do anyway. When they go cold after a warm moment, you appreciate them showing you that you need to keep your options open, not with sarcasm, with genuine gratitude. This breaks their brain. They're comfortable with you being upset about their behavior because your upset proves you care. But gratitude? That's unexpected. It implies you're making decisions based on what they've shown you. Suddenly, they realize their behavior isn't pushing you to chase harder. It's pushing you to care less. And that terrifies them. 3. You become genuinely excited about your life without them. This isn't about posting happy photos to make them jealous. This is about actually building a life so engaging that their absence becomes irrelevant. Avoidants believe they can disappear and reappear because you'll always be there. But when you genuinely get excited about other things, everything shifts. You start that project you've been putting off. You reconnect with old friends. You don't do it to get their attention. You do it because their inconsistency freed up your schedule. When they text, you respond hours later because you were genuinely busy. This reversal hits different. They're used to being the prize. But now you're the one with limited availability. They start to wonder what you're doing that's so interesting. They feel the shift in your energy. You're no longer waiting for them to choose you. You're busy choosing yourself. 5. You stop being available for unclear communication. Avoidants are masters of vague communication. They send mixed signals, breadcrumbs, texts that could mean anything. Most people try to decode these messages. But here's the reverse psychology move. You simply stop engaging with anything that isn't clear. When they send a vague, "Hey," you don't respond. When they make unclear plans, you make other ones. You don't ask for clarification. You simply treat unclear communication as no communication. This forces a complete change in dynamic. Avoidants rely on ambiguity to maintain control. But when you stop playing detective, they lose their power. Now they have 2 choices. Continue being vague and get ignored, or start being clear about what they want. Your time is too valuable for maybe. When they realize their usual mysterious act isn't working, they're forced to step up or step out. 7. You become impossible to guilt or manipulate. Avoidants often use subtle guilt to keep you hooked. They'll mention how damaged they are from past relationships. They'll make you feel responsible for their emotional walls. Usually this works. You exhaust yourself trying to heal wounds you didn't create. But when you become immune to guilt, everything changes. When they mention their trust issues, you say, "That sounds really hard for you," and change the subject. When they blame their past for their current behavior, you respond with, "I hope you find healing," and Don't offer to be their therapist. This immunity breaks their entire operating system. Their sob stories get sympathy without attachment. You've stopped auditioning for the role of their savior. By refusing to be manipulated, you force them to show up authentically. So there you have it, the one psychology move that changes everything. Stop chasing and start living. When you understand how avoidants think, when you know exactly what texts reach them, and when you master the art of reverse psychology, you don't need to chase anymore. They come to you. If this helped you see things differently, hit that like button and subscribe for more psychology-based relationship insights. And remember, the right person won't make you feel like you need a psychology degree just to be loved. You deserve someone who chooses you as enthusiastically as you choose them.